Cinnabar. Cinnabar is one of the most intensely red minerals on Earth, and it has a long history as a pigment, a pure, almost artificial red that looks like someone poured paint directly into rock and let it solidify. The color comes from mercury, and that same mercury is what makes it lethal. Prolonged exposure attacks the nervous system gradually, starting with tremors and progressing to psychosis and organ failure. The Romans knew the mines that produced it were a death sentence. They sent slaves and prisoners to work them anyway, because the red it produced was reserved for the most sacred uses in the empire. The faces of gods were painted with it. The walls of temples were coated in it. The most divine color in Roman civilization came out of a mine that destroyed everyone who went inside.
Orpiment. Orpiment is a yellow-orange mineral so vivid and luminous that medieval painters called it king's yellow. Ground into powder, it produced a color that no other natural material could replicate at the time. It was used in sacred manuscripts, in royal portraits, in the decoration of the most important documents in the world. It was also arsenic. Some time ago, arsenic was used for paint, and also used to dissolve into wine and mix into food in royal courts across Europe and the Middle East for centuries. Applied to the pages of books sent to enemies, it was absorbed through the skin of anyone who handled them. The pigment that made sacred texts beautiful was chemically identical to one of the most used poisons in political history. The painters who ground it daily and had direct contact with the substance were slowly poisoning themselves to illuminate the word of God. Galena. Galena is the heaviest common mineral a person can hold, dense, dark gray and metallic with a weight in the hand that feels disproportionate to its size. It is the primary natural source of lead, and the Romans processed it on an industrial scale for pipes, cookware, wine vessels, and the sweet syrup used to preserve food and improve the taste of sour wine. It was one of their most celebrated engineering materials. What they did not know was that the lead was entering their food, their water, and their bodies simultaneously every single day. Historians and toxicologists have argued for decades that chronic lead exposure across the Roman population contributed to the behavioral and cognitive deterioration documented in the later imperial period. What built a big part of one of the most powerful empire's infrastructure in Western history may have also helped bring it down. Chalconthite. Chalconthite looks like something that is not to be touched. Those kinds of things that nature tells you to keep away only by its color. Deep electric blue crystals with a translucency and color saturation that looks closer to glass than mineral. If by instinct you try to touch it because it's pretty, you fell for the trap. Chalconthite dissolves in contact with moisture, including the moisture on human skin. The copper it releases is absorbed directly through touch, and in sufficient quantities, copper poisoning causes nausea, organ damage, and neurological disruption. The mineral is so visually compelling that people handle it anyway. It is sold in crystal markets without warning labels, displayed at counters where visitors pick it up without gloves, and grown synthetically in laboratories for educational purposes, where students are handed specimens and told to observe the color. The most immediately beautiful toxic mineral in this list is also the one most likely to be held by someone who has no idea what it is doing to them. Hutchinsonite. Hutchinsonite is one of the few minerals on Earth that combines the most toxic trio you could have: lead, arsenic, and thallium. It forms as thin, elongated, deep red crystals with a metallic surface that catches light like polished metal. It is rare enough that most professional gemologists have never handled the specimen, and toxic enough that those who have handled it without protection have reported symptoms a few days later. Thallium in particular is absorbed through skin contact with no immediate sensation whatsoever. No burning, no irritation, no warning. Symptoms appear days after exposure, beginning with nerve pain and progressing to hair loss and jumping straight to organ failure. It was the preferred poison of the KGB during the Cold War precisely because of that delay. It looks like a collector's trophy and contains the same compound Soviet intelligence used for political assassinations. Torbernite. Torbernite grows as flat, perfectly square emerald green crystals that look like they were perfectly cut by a machine. The geometry is so precise and the color so saturated that specimens are among the most visually arresting objects in any mineral collection. But they are also radioactive. The uranium content that produces the green color emits continuous radiation, and as the mineral slowly breaks down over time, it releases radon gas directly into the surrounding air. A sealed display case containing torbernite builds up radon concentration over time. There had documented cases cases of homes built on ground containing Torbernite deposits that registered dangerous radon levels for years before the source was identified. Be careful. One of the most beautiful minerals in existence is slowly irradiating everything around it, silently, with no indication on its surface that anything is happening at all. Maybe that tells something about life. Stibnite. Stibnite forms as long, blade-like metallic silver crystals that grow in dramatic radiating clusters. For thousands of years, ground stibnite powder was the primary cosmetic used to darken eyebrows and eyelids across the ancient Middle East, Egypt, and Rome. The same black powder applied around the eyes of pharaohs, described in detail in Egyptian medical papyri as both a cosmetic and an eye medicine, was antimony, a heavy metal that accumulates in the body over time and damages the heart, liver, and kidneys with chronic exposure. Cleopatra's iconic eye makeup was almost certainly stibnite. The most recognizable beauty ritual of the ancient world was a slow poisoning applied directly to the face every day. The mineral that made empresses beautiful is now used primarily in flame retardants and industrial alloys. Arsenopyrite. Arsenopyrite is the most common arsenic mineral on Earth and one of the most reliable indicators that gold is nearby. Gold deposits and arsenopyrite form under the same geological conditions, which means that wherever miners found one, they started looking for the other. During the gold rushes of the 19th century, arsenopyrite was everywhere. In the walls of mines, in the soil turned by prospectors, in the dust that filled the air of mining camps. When struck or heated, it releases arsenic gas, with a smell described as garlic, which is why experienced miners called it by another name entirely. Many of the gold rush miners who never found their fortune and died young in camp were not victims of violence or disease. They were living and working inside a cloud of arsenic and had no framework to understand what was happening to them. The mineral that pointed toward wealth was quietly eliminating the people looking for it.